What's up, guys? We got another game. We have the black pieces against Dennis, 2403. He's rated 1356. He opens up with 1e4. We're going to play the perk defense. It's only going to be one game this video unless I win quickly. So we go d6 and g6, starting moves of the perk. He opens up what looks to be the classical. Maybe he'll go for opposite side castling with bishop e3, queen d2, and castle long. Maybe he'll just bring his knight out, his bishop out, and castle short. These are some of his options. Another option is to develop the bishop here. Maybe he's still going to castle long, so in preparation for that, I'm going to go c6, control the center, and prepare pawn storm. He sacks the bishop for the knight. This is the one line that kind of goes off track because of this weird pawn structure. The upside for me is I have the Dutch bishop, he doesn't. The downside is it's a little different pawn structure than the normal like perk games, but whatever. So he develops a knight, helps control central squares, makes sense. I'm gonna play f5. If he takes, that's good for me. I undouble my pawns and develop, and he gets rid of a central pawn. If he doesn't want that to happen, he can try to push. But then I can kind of close the center with some nice pawns on the 5th rank. Also, I could take. We'll see what he does. Either way, f5 is just opening the way for my bishop to have more squares. He doesn't push, but this lets me take one of his central pawns with this weird pawn, so I am going to take. Get rid of that. Now my bishop's open again, and now this bishop's open again, so I'm glad that I got rid of that pawn for his central pawn. That was important. He has to take back with one of the pieces, and then I can just fianchetto my bishop. And no one's done anything crazy. He has 3 pieces out of, you could say, none. And yet I like my position more. Because even though nothing's developed, I'm still touching a lot of squares. Not that those squares matter, but like now I'm developed, I'm in a castle. I'm going to put my bishop here, my knight here, my queen here, or somewhere. And I just have good squares for 1 pieces. He castles, probably going to put a rook here. We got a castle to get our king safe before we do anything. He goes here to try to say, hey, you don't have any good squares for your bishop. Although e6 is actually a decent square. We also can kick his bishop if it's ever trapped at some point. We could also do this now. Control, take some space in the center with tempo. The downside of this move, it gives this square for his pieces. But maybe we can control that. Keep that at bay. We're going to just develop our knight. It's a slow, clunky piece. Maybe you could have gone this way as well. With this idea, he plays a3, then you go to c7, e6. But this is an idea too. You just go here, you can put it here. You can leave it here for a little bit to look at this. See, now he can jump his knight in and play f4, which is an idea maybe, because it loses the pawn. If he ever moves this knight, this pawn is loose. This pawn is kind of misplaced. He wants to play c4, c3. So he moves the knight out of the way, which defends the pawn and prepares c4, c3, like I said. But now I'm just going to continue developing. I'm going to put my rook on its most natural square. Control a bunch of squares. And everything's looking pretty good so far. I need to maybe improve this knight. Maybe even putting it on e6 again is an idea. Okay, but now he strikes with c4. This threatens my center. Weakens the d4 pawn a little bit. But we can take. Open up the center. He has an isolated pawn. He moves his bishop out, gets some pressure. We hit the bishop with our knight. He goes back. Then we plant our knight in the center. And he can't kick it with a pawn, so it's an outpost. I kind of like that, so I'm going to go for it. Let me just double check. If I go here and he sacks, then I take. He doesn't have any good jumps. And I don't mind this pressure considering my knight's going to be blocking it. So, and now I'm blockading his isolated pawn like you're supposed to. His bishop's diagonal is cut off. I have an active rook. My bishop's open, and now it's going to get to the diagonal he was once controlling. So he puts his knight back here and challenges my center. Maybe he's going to give me an isolated pawn in return if I let him. Taking would support his center and open his bishop. I don't like that. I even prefer moving to taking. If I let him take and we do something like this, it's so symmetrical and kind of like I mean, it's not fully symmetrical or anything, it's just we both have isolated pawns and it's kind of lame. I don't know. So I'm trying to look for other options, but I guess I could develop here instead. Let's try that. That way, if he takes, we can take with a piece, and if he takes, we can then take with the queen, and then I'm happy because I get to keep the pawn structure. I don't want to change the pawn structure. So he moves his queen up. I guess just consolidating, connecting the rooks. It does give me potential knight jumps though, which force bishop trades if I want them. This is his good bishop. So if I hit the queen, he has to move the queen somewhere, and then I take the bishop. Even if he takes my knight, I'll move my bishop. If he takes the bishop, it opens his rook. But then I move the knight. I could do that. What else do I have? I can hit the queen first, and if it goes somewhere, what does that do for me? That doesn't do what I want. Where can I move my queen? Okay. Also this move, maybe. What does my opponent want? Maybe he wants to jump in. I'm gonna just do this. Knight f4. I'm gonna get rid of the pressure from his bishop and get rid of my technically bad bishop, the light square one. If I could trade these, I should be happy. I think. So I'm gonna take it because that piece was kind of blocking other pieces, and my pawns are on light, so it's kind of in the way. Meanwhile, that was his best piece, I think. He does open this up, but for the time being, my rook's here. I will have to spend a turn with a6, but whatever. My knight's currently hanging. If I move it back here, that's something, but I feel like maybe here puts a third attacker on the center. But that's not blockading the isolated pawn, so it doesn't follow the rules because he'll just push. So let's go back and blockade. If he takes, we take with the queen, which is good for us. And now basically if we pile up on these weaknesses in an endgame, we can win. Pawn weaknesses. So trade everything without helping his pawn structure. Like right, in some other way. Play a6 and then attack his weaknesses. See, this has eternal pressure and never has to move. That's why these pieces are so good. You move them once, and then for the rest of the game, they just do so much, and you don't waste time with them. Which is kind of clutch. So he goes g4. This doesn't threaten anything, but it definitely weakens the king and light squares around the king. It doesn't help his position any. I'm not sure what the idea was behind it. I just need to continue making reasonable moves. We're going to start with a6. It just stops all the pressure and allows us to move our rook. I mean, not there. We're going to try to maybe double or triple. We're going to use the D and E files. The E file's open, but we have a target on the D file, so that's important too. So we have to decide which one we want to use, and we might have to go for some trades first before we actually hit the D4 pawn further. Maybe we got a triple stack or double stack on the D file. Okay, so he moves his rook. The thing is, trades are good for me because I'm gonna be able to maybe apply pressure to the D pawn, but let's see. I'm gonna move my queen. Well, that walks into this. Do I have any good moves there? Not really. I mean, the thing is, if he takes, I want to be able to take with the queen, so I don't want to move it like off of the D file. So let me just move it up one, which walks into this, but if I take, what happens if I take? If he takes with the pawn, his queen is loose, but so is mine. If I move my rook over, he'll still have these isolated B pawns, so even if we fix the D pawn in that case, he'll have these weaknesses and a 3-on-2, which is winning endgame for me, I think. So here takes, if he takes with the rook, we take, then again we bring the rook over, he brings the rook over, but at the very least I guess we have knight b6, but then he moves the queen, but then I move my queen, rook takes, queen takes. I don't know. That should be fine for me. The most important thing is this guy's slower than me, so he does the other knight. He goes this knight to e4, which relieves some pressure from my position, maybe threatens some weird jump. I'm not entirely sure. Okay, I'm just gonna bring in my rook for now. And now there's no pressure here, so I can move my queen off the D file. I'm gonna move this knight and attack this pawn with 3 pieces. Thing is, this not supported here. It blocks itself here. Although none of this hits this. But if he moves back, I have to move back. Not supported here. This is an idea because its future is to hit the pawn again. He attacks my queen and the pawn. I can't lose the queen, obviously. If I move it up, he takes this with tempo, and then I don't have a good square. If I move it to the side, I want to move it here, I think, to try to dominate his knight, and if I play b6, he can't take a6. And then I can lift my rook up and try to stack on the D file, and the rook also would defend this. And eventually he's just gonna have to take my stuff because he's gonna not know what else to do. Like, what other moves are there for white? If you flip the board, it's, you see, he just doesn't have moves, so he just takes automatically. I have to take so we don't waste time. And we have the d-file, but there's not much you can do with it. Maybe if he moves the knight somewhere, you can use it, but I think rook e7 is reasonable. That way you have the option of doubling on either way. And his knight, okay, it may look good on c5, but I'm not sure it's doing anything. At the right time, I'm just like, I don't care about the b pawn. I'm gonna sack it, but I kind of have a positional domination here, so there's no reason to do anything. I can take my time. White's out of ideas, that's why he's running out of time. Like, he took my rook and then nothing, because that was just like an easy move you can automatically make. And here comes the second trade, another easy move you can automatically make, right? So how do I want to do this? Like, you could take and stuff, but your queen's tied down to here, which might be weird. I think I'm going to move my rook over, avoid the trade, just to avoid that, all the lines where his knight takes this at the end. And now it adds another attacker. So he blocks with the knight. And if I take that, and he takes with the rook, this looks so suspicious. I just don't have the square I want. Can I kick his knight now? I feel like now might be the time to kick his knights. Let's start with this one, because this one blocks our bishop for a second. So let's start with the other one. See where it goes. Okay, so now he goes here, which blocks his rook. No real jumps. So now if I take, he has to take with the pawn, which is what I wanted him to have to take with. Because then my rook's staring at his queen. But I don't see any good knight jumps. Which is annoying. Not gonna lie, it's annoying. And if I do kick this knight, where does it go? We're gonna kick the knight. I don't see a good square. This is defended. This blocks the queen's vision of the pawn. This is natural, but whatever. And my plan was to then play f5. So f6 and then f5. Kicking both knights with tempo. This does allow him to jump in and hit my queen. That's okay. I'm going to move up. Now his knight's threatened. 2 pieces for a rook problem. He throws in the check, which forces the trade. And now I go here to control the foul, attack his knight, trap it. He has to further trade. I move my king up a little closer in the endgame, and this isn't a thing because my knight's here. He can't kick my knight. Maybe he can try to trade, but there's no check after that. So he does this whole knight thing. I'm going to take it just so he doesn't give me an isolated pawn. And then I'm going to put my queen in a centralized square, and I have to make sure he can't perpetual me, and that's should be enough. I'm just going to take because he has 1 second and it's easier than thinking. So there's that. Won a good game. We weren't up material at all, but if you just play good moves and positionally tie them up to the point where they just don't have any moves that it makes sense to them, like maybe a computer can find some moves, but as a human, you're like, there's nothing to do here. If they ever get to that point and you can make them feel like that, you're doing great. Um, so, all right, GG's. Submit your stuff. Goodbye.